So why does this super cheap fuzz pedal sound so good? And have I just spent hours and years, and all my life in fact, building pedals that actually sound worse? Let's find out, because today could change how I build pedals forever. So how on earth am I supposed to beat this amazing pedal? I mean, let's face it, the fact that the police car lights light up opposite each other while the pedal's on is just insanely good. So this is the little box in question, and it cost £89. Can you believe it? £89 sounds this good. It looks simple and it absolutely sings. If this sounds better than what I'm about to build, I'll genuinely be surprised. Stick around to the end of the video and I'm going to give you my unfiltered opinion on both this pedal and the custom build that I'm doing today. If you like this sort of madness, check out the pedals that I build over at hellosailoreffects.com. Thank you for buying pedals from me. It really does help keep the show going. So how am I going to beat it? Well, I'm going to try my hardest to go the other way around. If this pedal is completely SMD, then I'm going to go with completely mental sizes. So we've got the largest enclosure that I do, the old vintage tone bender style enclosure. And I'm going to even go down as far as getting the largest pots that I've got, the largest switch that I've got. I mean, look at it, it's meant for high voltage. The largest caps, I've got this F&T cap. I mean, look at it, the cap's nearly bigger than the pedal. So I've got this large F&T cap meant for amplifiers. I've even gone as far as getting the largest Sprague Black Beauty cap that I could find, because I'm going to use that too. I mean, these two caps alone are literally the footprint of this pedal. If this doesn't make a difference, I'll eat my hat. Maybe I won't eat my hat because this thing really does sound good, worryingly good. Right, so let's get on to the tag board. Here's the tag board we're going to be using. Most of you will have seen me build an Abbey Road fuzz and know that normally I have 5 tags either side. And this indeed does have 6, so why? And that's because this is our first component and it's so big that I'm going to need to take a tag to sort of half mount this on the board just to have a bit of space. I mean, I could probably mount it just next to the board just fine, but whatever. All I'm going to do is just work the tags and get rid of these 2 inside 2 tags first. And I have a feeling that that's still not going to fit. Nope, I need to take the top ones off as well. Interesting fact, if you ever wanted to build like Leo Fender where you just have the hole like an eyelet board, you can snap these little tags off and just use these center holes. If you're using larger components, sometimes that's a bit easier. Right, there we go. So now it can fit on here like this. Now because we're doing, this is going to be like a silicon fuzz, NPN, so it is negative ground. Technically you could build this in a smaller enclosure and add a power supply the same as any normal pedal, but because I want to do the complete opposite to this pedal, the called By The Fuzz, this one takes a regular power supply, so I'm going to go battery just to make it different. Right, and this actually, I mean, funnily enough, I bought this cap to do a cap job on a vintage amp for a friend, but then he changed his mind. He didn't want his amp going over, so I didn't do the cap job in the end, and I had the caps lying around, which is why I'm using it for this. Right, because it's negative ground, our negative is going to go to the top left hand side tag, so that's this end of this cap. And as you can see, these are 33 UF. Now usually 33 microfarad. Usually for the fuzz face, you're looking at something like 22 microfarad for this position. I'm going to use 33. Why? Because I want to make it sound different and I just want to use the bigger cap, if I'm being honest. Now, this is 32 and 32, so there are 2 caps inside this. And one of them is going to be unused. So that unused one, I'm just going to snip the lead off. I know it's sacrilege and I'm wasting a cap. And I'll use that later on as a link for something. So, this is how our thing's going to fit. Now to make it fit, I'm just going to bend the 2 leads around, so then they're sitting at angles, and then I'm going to bend them back on themselves to go through these holes. And then to measure that up, all I do is just add the cap next to it, get my snips on there with a Mark 1 eyeball as ever. Oh no, I can't believe I've just done that. I've just ruined it. I've just snipped off the end of that, and that's why you should always use the flat nose pliers and not the bloody snips to do this disaster. Right, okay, back to the drawing board. Looks like this is going to come in handy now because I'm going to use it to fix my mistake. Brilliant. So we line this up, bend this round gently, and I'm using the wrong bloody ones again. Look at that, force of habit. I'm going to slot that right the way through. And I'm going to make sure that the cap is sitting central to the board, because once I solder this in, it won't move. And it's going to get soldered in this end. If I can find my solder tip. I've moved everything around because I was tidying up prior to filming this one. I can't find anything. Brilliant. So we'll just solder this in. There. There's the negative side in. Now, because I've wrecked this side, I'm going to use the leg that I snipped off the opposite cap. And I'm just going to poke that through the tags. And then that way I can solder them together, basically. Use this leg as a surrogate for the one that I clipped off prematurely. I'm only 5 minutes in trying to beat this bloody fuzz pedal. I'm already making mistakes. Stressed out. I can't believe how good this thing is and the price. Honestly, Andy from Funny Little Boxes, if you ever watch this, mate, you need to put your prices up. Think about those little guys. Mad. I don't even think I could do the enclosure for the price that he's selling them things for. Right. Anyway, there's our first component on the tagboard, and as you can see, it's massively side heavy now because it's ridiculously big. Next on the cards is our input cap. Now our input cap is actually going to be 3 caps. So on the board I'm going to mount this, a 5.6 NF Mullard mustard cap, new old stock, very nice cap. I'm going to use that as our trebly boost position because the switch is going to have 3 positions of EQ. Our mid hump position is going to be this 2000 volt Sprague cap. As I say, I've bought a load of them, but my supplier has now run out, so when these are gone, they are gone. And then I'm also going to add in, for the full fat fuzz face sound, this 1 microfarad Soviet issue paper and oil. This is a K42Y-2. So these are made famous by the K4Y09 paper and oil caps. Everyone wants them in guitars. They're like this, only silver. Well, this is a 1 microfarad version of that. It's massive. So they're going to be the 3 caps. These 2 are obviously going to be mounted on the switch, so off board. And this one is going to be mounted on the board. So to mount that, we give the legs a clean. And yes, I know I'm cleaning the legs with my snips. Even after snipping a leg off 5 seconds ago, I'm still cleaning the legs with the snips. Then bend the legs over. I like to have the 400 volt pointing upwards. I mean, you could have, best practice says that you put the voltage rating and the value pointing upwards, but really what I like to do is just put whatever looks good. Then we bend the legs round on themselves. Now all this is because if we fit the cap just in there isn't much room to get it between the tags, so this just helps it sit above. So we can slide one leg in, and then all we have to do is snip the other leg behind the tag, and we can slide that leg in too. Then centralise our cap. When you're doing this bit, you can only solder the end closest to me, because if you solder the other end, you're going to mess up because we've got another component going in there. So we can just solder this end in. Nice. Perfect. Now, if we take a look at our drawing, we can see that there's a resistor going, a 100k resistor going from the base of our Q1 transistor through to the 3rd tag along on the bottom row. Now, this is a 100k resistor, but you can add in anything from like 80k to 120. And what this resistor is it's a feedback loop. So it works kind of like an amplifier feedback, where a line is taken from the output of the transformer back to the to before the phase inverter or to the preamp. And what this does is cancel out. some of the sounds being made, so it makes it cleaner. So you hear amps without a feedback loop are actually gainier and more unruly. So with that in mind, this feedback loop, what we can do is the larger we make this resistor, the more gain, the more spluttery and the more aggressive we're going to have our fuzz. And the lower we make this, the more clearer, the better cleanup we're going to get. And it's one of the things we can manipulate to make this pedal sound better. Now you could put this on a switch and do 120 and say like an 80k resistor and switch between the two. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is add in this 91k resistor. Two reasons. One, 91k is really nice with silicon, so it's just enough to take the edge off so you get that cleanup when you roll the guitar's volume back. And two, it's massive, and I want everything in this pedal to be huge. No other reason than that. I mean, you could say it's ridiculous, but I don't care. I actually think that I'm going to end up keeping this fuzz on my board, but we'll see. If I don't keep it on the board, when this video goes live, it will be live with the video on my website, hellosailoreffects.com. There will only be one of these, so if you want it, get in there now and buy it, because it's in fact, if you got this far through the video, it's probably sold, I would have thought. Right, so we just slot this resistor in much the same way. Oh man. So I don't want to have this sitting above the board because it's going to get in the way of our trim pots. So what I'm going to do is I'll just bend this tag outwards a little bit, and then that way I can slot the resistor in, and once it's slotted in, I can slide it back in. Slide it back in here, slide it back up. Tell you what, this large resistor's been a lot more trouble than I thought it was gonna. Right, okay, there we are, it's in. So now I'm going to solder the top off, but I'm not going to solder the bottom off because there's another thing going in there. Right, now if we check our drawing out, we can see that the third tag along on the bottom row has got a little link wire that goes across to the last tag along on the top row. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of our snipped component legs, if it's long enough. Yes, it is. Slide it through the third tag along on the bottom row with that resistor, and oh, do you know what? That's just not long enough. Shame. Okay, so we'll use a different component leg. I'll have to straighten that bad boy out. It's always handy to keep these component legs around, unless you're going to buy some uncoated wire, which I do have for sale, or I do have an affiliates link for in the description below if anyone's interested. Amazon give me a little kickback, but you don't get any extra charge yourselves, and you get the added bonus of knowing that you're using the wire that I use when I'm building as well. So there's some crap stuff out there, and I've been through it all. Let me tell you, like silicon wire, the actual wire that I wire up pedals with. I have gone through so many different brands, and the one in the description is literally the best. Since BN Tech Go have started becoming a bit harder to get, I've moved on to a different one, which was a task every time that something goes out of stock to go through the 7,000 competitors to it before you find one that's good enough. It's insane. Right, we can actually solder both of these in. So I'm going to start with the one at the top, and then move down to our resistor at the bottom. There. Now we're on to the trim pots. Here's the trim pots I'm going to be using. They're pretty nice ones from Cytec. I've not got many of these, so I use them sparingly. If we have a look at our drawing, we can see that there's two trim pots. Now, the second trim pot could be a lower value, but I use 100k anyway, mainly because I find these rare, hard to come by trim pots, and to find one 50k and 100k is not usually going to happen, and I like the idea of having both of them the same, looking the same next to each other on the board. So that's why I'm using 100k for both. To use these, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to snip one leg off, which for me is going to be this leg here, because they fit on the tag board like this. So this leg is closest to the tag that it's going to go to, and the center leg at the back. Fine, whatever. It doesn't really matter which leg you snip off, but you do need to snip off one of the outside legs and not the wiper. Once we've done that, this basically turns this into a variable resistor. So the carbon track in here is basically becoming more or less resistance between these 2 points. So what I like to do is extend the legs. So I use my hook and loop method. Regular viewers will have seen this a million times. And make no apologies, I must do this 1,000 times a day myself. Mainly because it's joining 2 parts together, and I know you could lie them next to each other or use them handy little arms and give them a solder, but doing it this way you get a mechanical connection. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, or whether you need it or indifferent, doesn't matter. This is just the way I do it. I realise these pedals don't have to survive like trauma, like being at sea, hit by waves, missiles, whatever. But this is just the way I do it. Now what you are going to need is either component legs or some uncoated wire. I like to use these resistors. They're well out of spec. I can't use them. They're going to drift more because they're carbon comp. But the legs on them are pretty good. So if I give them a clean, I can use these. And the good thing is, I know that all of my legs for my variable resistors will all be the same thickness if I use these, because not that it matters, it's just in my head it really helps me. It's weird, isn't it, that I can have utter symmetry in some things and then complete chaos in others, and that's what makes me feel comfortable. Mad. I don't know if you guys have weird little things like that. Like I have this, I can't believe I'm going to say this on camera, but I have this really weird thing, whereas if you imagine wearing your jeans, you've got a left and a right pocket. If I've got my phone, it has to be in my left pocket, and my wallet, right pocket. But if I haven't got my phone and I've only got my wallet doesn't go in the right pocket, it has to go in the left. So like the left pocket, left hand, if I'm carrying stuff, whatever, it has to have like the heavier, larger thing in it than the right. Don't know why, I've just always done that since I was a kid. And I never even noticed it was a thing until someone in work said, you're a bit odd with that sort of stuff. And I was like, no. I lost my wallet and I was like searching everywhere, couldn't find it. And then someone picked up my jeans and went, it's in the left hand pocket. I was like, oh, it doesn't live there. It really confused me. But anyway, funny how we take things, innit? So what we do is we make a hook with our other leg, if you like, and hook it round. Once they're married together, you can just give it a sweet squeeze with your snips, or probably better to use your flat nose pliers. Probably better to use your matching set of Nipex flat nose pliers. So if you haven't got them, you really should. And then there's a good mechanical connection. We can do it with the other one too. Let's see. The amount of times that I've gone to squeeze these down, squeezed a bit too hard and snipped them is unreal as well. It's a real thing, but I still end up using the pliers. What can I say? Wet the tip and then give it a solder. There's one of our variable resistors done, ready to go. The only thing left to do is to give it a bit of heat shrink. Here it is with the 2 trim pots fitted. All I've done was heat shrink each of the legs, bend them over on themselves and solder them in. And if we have a look on our drawing, we can see that 1 trim pot has gone in the 3rd tag along in the top row and the 4th tag along in the bottom row. And the other trim pot has gone in the 4th tag along in the top row and the 5th tag along in the bottom row. I do advise putting trim pots instead of resistors for both of these positions. It just means that later on we'll be able to dial in exactly how our transistors are biased. And I'll show you how to do that, so stay around for that. That is probably, as much as I hate to say it, the most important part about building one of these fuzz pedals. We're moving on to the last 2 components before we get to the transistors, which I'm excited about. So it's decisions. I think the first component we're going to fit is this, that output cap. It's our massive Sprague Black Beauty cap. This is a 250 NF, so 0.25 microfarad. It's way bigger than I need. In this position, it's usually a 10 NF, with these with fuzz faces. I go up to 22 NF on my ones usually. However, when we're set in the 5.6 NF position, the trebly position, or the 22 NF position on a switch, it's going to be really trebly, and this is going to sound pretty decent in them positions. And then when we go up to the full fat fuzz face, a normal fuzz face is like 2.2 microfarad, 2.2 UF. We're only using a 1 UF. So adding this in probably isn't going to make that much difference. And we're using silicon transistors that are usually a bit more spiky than germanium. So having the extra bass come out of there is not going to do it any harm, I don't think. And not to mention, just having it there looks pretty damn cool in my eyes. And looks are 9/10 of a pedal. What can I say? So fitting these, if you happen to come across these massive old Sprague Black Beauty caps, they're not polar, so you can fit them in either way. But this little line here denotes what would be called the negative on a polar cap. And if we have that pointing to outside of the pedal, so away from the input, which is going to be this way round, it should be quieter. Now, it probably doesn't make a difference in a 9-volt pedal, but if you're building an amplifier or something like that, it does make a difference. So first things first, I'm just going to straighten out the legs on this, because they are, I mean, as you can see, they are absolutely battered. They're like, well, it's just old, isn't it? It's a really old cap. These are actually made for amplifiers and what have you. They're not meant for like small voltage pedals, but when have you ever known me to build something with stuff that's actually meant to be used for what I'm using them for? Never is the answer. I always like to think outside the box and whatnot. Right, okay, so to attach this, there's two ways to go. It may be long enough, so the leg, first of all, I want to get the Sprague pointing upwards, because why have something branded if people don't know about it? Bend the leg over. Now, if I bend that leg on itself again, is it going to reach that tag? Not entirely sure, but we shall find out. If it doesn't reach the tag, we can use another leg to get in there, but hopefully it will. Ah, there you go. That'll do. Close enough for government work, as they say. I know Craze Fandango is going to love that, because he either has or has had a government job, and he got really offended at first with the close enough for government work. But as a 23-year done now, 23 at the end of this year it is, military man, I think I've earned my stripes enough to say close enough for government work. Right, there's our output cap fitted. I think that looks awesome. The last component, notwithstanding the transistors, is going to be this. So this little resistor goes between the power in on your board and the next tag along, the output. On a normal fuzz face, this is 330 ohms. And it's also the reason why a normal fuzz face, when you step on it, it gets either quieter or it's unity gain. The more you increase this resistor, the louder it's going to get. After a K, 1K, it really doesn't make that much difference, I don't think. These are 1.1K Philips resistors. I've only got a few of them. Philips make really good stuff, you know. I think it's like Philips, Mullard, they're all the same brand, aren't they? Or they were back in the day. Now, these are fantastic resistors, so I'm going to use it. It's not massive. It's bigger than a normal resistor, if you like, but it's not massive, and it's certainly bigger than the SND resistors in the Caught by the Fuzz. So, all I'm going to do is bend it over, snip the legs. It can sit a little bit high on this pedal because it's going in a massive enclosure. And I'm just going to rest that between them two tags on the inside of the board rather than on the outside. And all we have to do is just solder them in place. After you've got the first joint in, it's always good to just straighten your component up and get it in the position that you want it to stay in forever. And then solder the other leg in. Ideal. Now we're on to the best bit. It is, of course, the transistors. To beat this pedal, I'm going to have to go all out on these transistors. I'm going to have to take no prisoners and not use something that I could use for a normal custom pedal. It's going to have to go that one little bit further because this is that good. Well, these are what I'm going to use. It's an RCA metal can silicon transistor. These are from the 60s, I believe. Very nice. And what we're going to do is we're going to test a load of them so then we can get a set that match or a set that or what I'm aiming for my preference. And it's not going to be what you think, so stick around for that. And of course I'm using my Peak Atlas DCA55. Everyone who builds fuzz should have one of these. Don't care what you think about it, you should have one. They're amazing. And they are available through the Amazon affiliates link in the description. Look at that for a seamless transfer. It's telling us that this is an NPN silicon transistor. Fantastic. It gives us our pinout, which we do need. This is a HFE of 77. Now there'll be no leakage because it's a silicon transistor. They don't have leakage. 77. Fantastic. So I'll put that there. Really what you should do is have a piece of paper and write down what they are. I'm missing a trick here because I'm not prepared. Basically, I bought this pedal at the Brighton Guitar Show and it blew me away that much. I was like, I need to make a video about it. So there's like zero prep gone into this. Right, next one, NPN silicon and 71 HFE. So 77, 71. These are all in a sort of range that I would like Q2 to be in, which is usually our higher gain sort of transistor. In, you know, usual convention is like 70 to 120, no, 70 to 100 for Q1 and then 90 to 120 for Q2. That's not what I'm going to do today. 71 again. Oh man. So there's another 70. I'm struggling to get one above 71 by the look of it here. I'm looking for something higher. I want a higher gain for the Q1 position, which is insane. It's not what people would think. 73. So they're all about 77 down to 70. What I'm going to do is I'll keep that one there because I know it's 70 and I'll put them away because I'm not going to use them. Low battery warning as ever on the old Atlas. 72. What is going on here? Where is all my my higher gain ones? Oh, that one's not. So look at that. Sneaking in there is one that's not actually a well, I don't know if it's an NPN silicon, but these ones are 2N3440s, and this one is a 2N5783. That's a PNP silicon. So you don't want to be trying to use that, because if I used that, it would have messed up the whole pedal. And if I was just picking random transistors up and trying them out, I'd have been tempted to put that in there. I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have seen it. So that's why you need the Peak Atlas DCA55, because otherwise you may end up using something that you don't want to use. Basically gone through the whole batch of these, and they're all rounded between 77 and 70 HFE, which is kind of insane. It's good in a way because it means that they're consistent and well made. NPN silicon. This one is, there you go, 98 HFE. So we're going to have our Q1 at 98 HFE and our Q2 at 72 HFE. Which is the wrong way round. It's what people wouldn't do. Normally people would have Q2 as more gain and Q1 as less gain. However, I'm thinking about it in pedal terms. If I have two pedals, let's say this is a high gain pedal and this is a lower gain pedal, I'm not putting the lower gain pedal first and a higher gain pedal second, because you're just going to get mush out the other side. I'm doing a higher gain pedal first in the signal chain and then a lower gain one second to boost the signal out. So I'm just thinking about it that way, and that's the way I'm going to arrange these transistors. So Q1 on our pedal board, if we look at our drawing, it goes emitter, base, collector. So the collector goes in a third tag along. So all we have to do is take our DCA55 to get our pin out. Now I know in NPN transistors, that little tab usually denotes the emitter. So you could probably say that's the emitter. We'll put that in tag 1. However, why take the risk? Why would you take the risk when we can just
use this handy little gadget. It costs basically no money to be able to tell what exactly is our pinout. So green is the emitter, which is the one with the tab. Red is the base, and blue is the collector. That's great. So, and this, oh, it's up to 100 now. So green is the emitter, goes on the left-hand side. Blue, I believe blue is the collector. Let's just double check that again because I forgot. Blue is the collector, which goes in the third tag along. So I know my transistor goes in that way round. Ideal. And we're going to be fitting them in the center lugs, just so then they're not hanging out the edge of the board, because we've actually got our super large switch sitting just above where this tag board is. So what I don't want is them poking out the end and fouling the top of it. It does present a problem though, because we fitted this massive cap in the way of soldering it. But there you go. I'm just going to tack solder one leg in now. So I don't want to fill up the whole hole, because it means that we won't get our next transistor in there. But I do want to just get a little bit of solder on the tag and a little bit of solder on the leg, just to hold it in place while we flip this board upside down. Let's make sure it's sitting straight. Flip the board upside down, and then we can solder from the underside and catch the legs that way. Silicon transistors tend to hold up to heat a little bit better than germanium, so you can be a bit more aggressive with your soldering there. But again, these are old, so you don't want to hang around too long. There is our Q1 at 90 to 100 HFE fitted. Q2 is our lower gain one, because I'm a rebel and I'm being different. I'm not sure where that whole higher gain, lower gain thing come from. Someone said it was an article. I think it might have been Dominion Electric when he was talking with John on the Pedal Dive podcast. They were talking about it being an article from Cornell, Dennis Cornell. Is that his name? Anyway, let's see. Check the HFE, 71, and red is our collector. Green is the base and blue is the emitter. So the blue on the right hand side. Now if we look at our drawing, we can see that this one actually goes base, collector, emitter. So this one we're going to have to reverse some pinouts. This is why I like the BC183LB, because in the Q2 position you don't have to reverse the pinout, but I digress. So our collector and our base have to swap round. We can just bend them round. And now to stop them from fouling each other, even though I know pretty much when I put that in there, they're not going to touch each other. They're just not. I'm still going to put a bit of heat shrink, a bit of sheathing on that centre leg. Now, good pedal builders, you know, people like Dam or Dominion Electric or people like that, they're probably going to put sheathing on all of the legs. I'm not that professional, so I'm just going to do the centre leg. And that's another good thing about our silicon wire, is that you can just strip a wire as easy as that and use the coating. So this time, if we bend our output cap out the way, we can actually get into the end tag there. We can get that emitter soldered in, like so. Now that transistor isn't going anywhere, we can manipulate it into place so then it matches our Q1. Just nice that they sit next to each other, you know. And then when we flip it upside down and solder these last couple of holes, whoa, sweet child of mine, let's just double check. Yeah. Sorry for a second then, because that was soldered. I couldn't see that that these two legs were joined together. Never mind, me just being mental. So we have emitter, base, collector for our Q1. Then we have base, collector, emitter for our Q2. We snip off the excess. Ideal. There is our board fully finished.
Now let's talk tagboard. Some say it's all mojo, some say it's rubbish, but for me it's all about proximity. If your parts are closer together, you get this thing called parasitic inductance. Now, I know there's going to be electrical engineers in the chat now who are going to turn around and say, Joe, you're talking about 9 volts, you're off your head, it's mad, it doesn't affect it. Fine, but for me, the size of your components and how close they are together, it definitely has an effect. That doesn't mean that you like the effect. That doesn't mean it's going to sound better. In fact, do I think it's going to sound better than this? Who knows? I mean, this sounds fantastic, so I don't know. I'll tell you now, I really hope that it sounds better, otherwise I'm out of a job. Another thing to consider is on a tagboard, you can use really big components. Now, is a really big component going to make a difference? Well, let's think about it logically. If you have 2 batteries, both the same output, let's say 500 milliamps. Is that a battery size? I don't know. 500 milliamps, 500 milliamps. This one's really small, this one's really big. The time it takes this one to charge is going to be less than the time it takes this one to charge. Now, change batteries for capacitors. And that's what you use to carry our signal in guitar pedals. Capacitors. They're charging and discharging. So I think the size of a capacitor matters. The question is, do you like the larger size or do you like the tiny SMD version? Because at the minute, I'm really loving this pedal.
Now it's time to get everything into the enclosure. So what have we got? We've got our super high voltage switch with a really nice waterproof dust cover or whatever it is. Don't know why I'm going to use that. I just think it looks cool. Regular gold pin stomp switch, 3-pole double throw with our ridiculously big washers. Always use them. And when with the largest pots I could find, they are wire wound pots. I know some people like Chris Finton from R2R Electric really think the pots make a difference. I tend to agree with him, so I'm going to use these. Then I've got my usual skeleton jacks. We've got a switch one for the input, which I don't normally use, and then a regular output. I'm going to go ahead and get them in there now. Okay, so this is everything in the enclosure ready to go. Let's see what we can do. I've added in some rubber right here. This is just because we're going to have our batteries sit there. Fine. I'm going to start from left to right on the bottom row of the tagboard. So if we look at our drawing, the first thing on the bottom is going to be a wire that comes round and goes to the center lug of our fuzz pot. Now the wiring loom, the direction I'm going to take is going to all come up and along this edge here. So we're going to come right the way up here and drop into things like here and then into our pots and what have you. It's going to come round and drop in. So this wire is going to come out of this cap. And because, I mean, let's face it, I'm not going to be able to get in there and solder the wire. I mean, maybe, but I'm just going to wrap the wire around this leg here. That means it's attached to this lug. And really, it's the cap that we're trying to get to, isn't it? That's what we're meant to be attaching. So I'm going to run that round, up along here, around this outside back edge, and then it's going to drop down the centre and go to the centre lug of our fuzz pot. Next up, if we check out our drawing, we can see that our input cap, which is the second tag along, is connected straight to the input of our pedal. Now, instead of running a wire in this one, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the previously used component legs and I'm going to run it from the input of our circuit here down to the input of our tagboard there. And that'll just give us a good solid connection. We've got our solid core wire in on the tagboard, but I haven't soldered it in this end because I'm going to be adding in these. These are 1 meg resistors, some old ones, and I'm going to run them from the input and output to this center lug here. And then I'm going to run a wire from the center lug out the back of our switch, follow our wiring loom round, and it can join up with our earth. And all that's going to do is give an anti-pop resistor to the input and the output of this pedal. The reason we have that, and I know I've described this on my channel before, but for those of you that haven't seen, is that no capacitor is perfect. Capacitors pass AC through them, so you get your AC sine wave through no problem, which is your guitar tone, but they block DC. Now, the issue is that no capacitor is perfect, especially these vintage ones. So what happens is over time, they allow DC to leach through them. It sits right on the outside edge, almost like ready next to the switch. And as soon as you click the switch on, that DC is released through the signal and it makes a pop sound. Right, now that that's in and annoyingly poking up until I put some cable ties in, the next stage is going to be the back of this 1K resistor. And if we look at our drawing, we can see that that is the 9-volt in. So now it's time to add this. To add this, what I like to do is add in the actual battery, so then we can position it so we can see exactly where the battery is going to go. And this is the way I'm going to fit it. The 9-volt is going to be the red, and that's going to come down and round the front here and then go into our tag there. So if I take a cut there, and then these are always a pain in the arse to strip because the wires are so thin here that if you strip it and clip some wire, you basically take away everything that's there. Let's give it a tin, and then I'm just going to attach that straight into the 4th tag along, which is the bottom of this 1K resistor. We can tidy that up once we've soldered it in. There we are. Okay, time to tidy it up. Right, now next stage is going to be to move on to the top row, and the first and only connection in the top row is our earth connection, which is in our top left tag. Brilliant. Now we also need to connect this earth. This is the switched earth, so this is going to come from here around this outside edge. It's going to come all the way up here, and it's going to attach to the input jack, but to the switched part of the input jack. And all that happens is when we plug our jack into the input, it connects this to ground, and when it does that, it allows the battery to make a circuit. And when you unplug your input jack, it disconnects this from ground, which means that the battery is not discharging. That's all it's doing. So I'm going to extend that with some of this silicon wire because it's much better wire than this. So I'll snip that off, heat shrink it, and I'll extend that round to here. To here, that's where it attaches. Then the earth wires. So what is going to be earthed? First of all, we've got our input jack and output jack. These are the earth connections. They'll go to earth. On top of these pots are these 2 little earth tabs, which you don't get on normal pots. Now, these should already be earthed to the enclosure. However, I'm going to connect them together, and I'm also going to connect them to earth just because I can and because they're there. So these are going to be connected, they're going to be connected. And then if we follow around, pin number 1 of our fuzz pot and number 1 of our volume pot are also going to go to earth. And then the wire is going to continue round and go right the way around to the back side of this massive F&T cap. So back in here is also going to be an earth. I'm probably just going to run that out straight up to here, and then that can link to that, and that can link to round and go through both of them. I'm going to go ahead and get the earths wired up now. Can you believe how many subscribers my channel has? It blows my mind every time I see it. It's insane. We're getting like 500 subscribers a month. That is mind-boggling. With that said, if you're not subscribed, please do hit the subscribe button or even press share and copy. That'll help YouTube know that I'm bringing value to you and they'll share my videos to more people. Thank you for supporting the show. It really does mean a lot. Okay, so next up, after we've got our earths all sorted out, is going to be our output. Now our output comes from this cap and it connects into our volume pot lug 3 right here. Now I'm not going to connect that just yet because first I'm going to connect our output of our 3-pole double throw switch, which comes from the switch round the back of the ponytail up, and then it's going to come round and drop into here. So I'm going to connect that up first, Then I'm going to use just a component leg from a previous component. In fact, I think this is actually from that cap. I'm going to run that component leg from lug 3 of our volume pot just to this cap here. And then our output will be wired up. That's our output wired up. It's going round, going to the center pin, pin 2 of our volume pot. And then we've got our output from the circuit going through our Sprag cap and to the volume pot 2. Next up, we're going to wire in the input and output. So the input here and output here of our jacks. So this is, do you know what I've just realized? I've put the input jack on the output on the wrong side. Ha! So this pedal is now going to be switched. I can't believe I've done that. Right, just so those of you who don't know, when a pedal is upside down, it's actually the opposite way around. So this is the input jack, this is the output jack, and I've put the switched part of this on the output. So before I sell this pedal, I'm going to have to swap that round. Whatever, we're going to go with it for now. So this is the output. It's going to go all the way around and attach to here. And then we're going to have a little loop in here for our bypass. And then this here is going to be the input. It's going to go all the way around and attach to here. I can't believe I've done that. Anyway, maybe I'll just leave it and inform people. And we'll pretend I did it because the fuzz face had the input on that side and the output on that side. Who knows? Right, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wire that up now. I couldn't handle it. I had to swap them round. So I have swapped the jacks round. This is our input jack that is switched. So we unplug our input. It will then mean that the power is taken away from the pedal and we save our battery. I just couldn't do it. This is the output jack. They're all wired up. The only thing left to tackle is this switch. So what goes on with this switch? These two center pins here attached to either side of this capacitor. So this one here is going to come round this wiring loom, round the back here and go into our input. This one here is going to come out the back and go into the base of our Q1. Fine, once that's in place, we've also got our caps. So what have we got? When the switch is in the down position, we want it to be bassy. So when the switch is in the down position, the upper lugs come into play. So I want our base cap there. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it so then it sticks straight up and down. I could do it that way around, but I'm not going to. I'm going to, I don't know, actually, that does look quite good. Yeah, I'm going to, changing my mind on the fly here. I'm going to attach this cap here. And then this cap here, when the switch is in the up position, it's going to be in the mid-focused position. This cap is going to attach here. I'll just bend the legs round to meet the tags. But first things first, let's get the wires in. Our switch is wired up. We've got our input and output sides of our cap wired in. At this point, you should really check that your transistor's bias and you don't have to move any wires around. As ever though, my anxiety cannot handle the fact that these wires are floating around everywhere. It's a right snake's wedding. So I'm going to go ahead and get some cable ties in there. I've chose yellow to go with the blue, mainly because it's a blue enclosure. I've chose yellow so then it matches our Sprag cap and a Sprag right in here. I don't know why, I'm just going with that. But I'm going to go ahead and get 7 billion cable ties in here. And then I'll show you how you bias it. Okay, so here we have it with all of the cable ties in. We are ready to go. This is the complete pedal. I mean, just look at it. I love how this looks on the inside. It's absolutely up my street. Now the question is, what do we think is going to sound better than the sound sample? Hang around, I will show you how to bias it. But just before we do that, check this out. So this is the funny little boxes called By The Fuzz. Great pedal. I'm enamoured by this thing. So much so that it made me create a video to question my whole ethos of building pedals. You know what I mean? It's fantastic. But this is what's inside. So you've got some SMD components. Interestingly enough, and believe me, I cannot wait for Andy to come on the Pedal Dive podcast. He chose full-size through-hole caps for the signal carrying caps. That's amazing. But then also there's a lot of SMD components for everything else, which is mad. This is why, I mean, look how neat it is. Look at the wires. It kind of reminds me a bit like Tate Effects, the neatness of it. Fantastic. But then you compare that to this. I mean, come on, like that cap is bigger than a whole circuit. That doesn't mean it's better, by the way, because this thing's bloody amazing. I'm actually worried that this isn't better. That's the problem. Right, I'm guessing that right there, that 105 is a 1 microfarad cap. I'm guessing that is the input cap, which means that when we're comparing these two pedals together, I'm going to use my 1 microfarad cap in that comparison. So I won't switch or anything, because it's a bit unfair for me to be switching around and saying, look, mine's better because I've got 2 extra tones, when this just doesn't have that. It's just an awesome pedal. So before we get onto that sound sample though, we do of course need to bias it. Otherwise, A, this thing's probably not going to work, but B, it'll sound terrible. And what do we need to bias it? You need your Fluke 101 or a multimeter of some kind. I said it before, I'll say it again. This thing has been round the world with me. It's fantastic. It's been to the Arctic. It's been to, well, everywhere. The Black Sea. It's been to South China Sea. It's been to the Gulf. You know, anyway, it's been everywhere. And it's had a right workout. As you can see, it's battered. But they are fantastic. So we need that. And you also need a screwdriver to adjust the trim pots. I've got a flat nose for this one. First test to do is with your 9 volts plugged in. I mean, this could be via a battery like we've got here, or via your a jack if you've done a jack. But what we want to see is, well, first of all, the enclosure is going to be grounded. So we want to see 9 volts on a battery. That's a no. So that's weird. I know why. We're not seeing it because 9 volts on a battery is the difference between there and there. There you go. Because it's not connected. What an idiot. So there we have. We're 9 volts on our battery, but we do not have any power going into our pedal. So right at the bottom of this 1K resistor where our 9 volt goes in, there is no power there. And that's because our input is disconnected. So if we take a jack and just plug it into our input, now we should get 9 volts at the input of our pedal. If we haven't, there's something wrong and we need to start tracing some stuff. Actually, I'll put this down here out of the way. So 9 volts at the input of our pedal. There you go, 9.6 volts. Now I've actually got a brand new battery in this, so then we bias it with a brand new battery. Now we're going to go to, basically the bias is whatever the voltage is at the collector of each transistor. So Q1's collector is where Q1 and Q2 meet together in the 3rd pin along. If we go to that, we can see that that's biased at 0.76. That would be amazing if it was germanium, but for the silicon fuzz face or silicon 2 transistor fuzz, you want that to be at 1.3 volts to start. I mean, you do it all by ear and by taste once you've dialed it into the start position. So I want that to be at 1.3. And the Q2, the collector, remember we swapped the collector and the base around. So the collector for Q2 is in pin 4, tag 4. And that is at 2.6 volts. We want that to be about 4.5 volts as a start. As we can see on our trim pots, they're wound right the way down. So I'm just going to wind them both up a little bit, blindly, especially this one, because it was at 0.2 and it needs to be at like whatever. So now Q2 is at 4.5 volts, 0.45 volts, and Q1 is at 0.9 volts. So Q1's rising nicely. Now, when you're adjusting this trim pot, the Q1 bias, it'll affect the bias on Q2. It just will. And then when you adjust Q2's bias, it affects the bias on Q1. So it's kind of like a balancing act. You have to dial it in. First of all, I like to set Q2 to the voltage that we want. So we want about 4.5 volts on Q2. So let's bring it right the way around until we get in the ballpark. 4.3, close enough for government work right now because we're still dialing it in. So let's go to Q1. That's at 1.26. That's very close. Almost there, in fact. So I'm going to give that just a little tweak to push it up to 1.3. Or as close to it as I can get. And sometimes you have to let it settle out. Don't keep tweaking because it'll keep swinging and you'll end up going over. One thing you will note is that the sweep on the Q1 pot is much better, because we're using the right value pot for the position. And the sweep on the Q2 pot will be worse. Unless you use like a 50k pot, the sweep will be worse. It just means that all the travel is right at the end. It doesn't bother me. I would rather both the pots look the same. So right now, with Q1 adjusted to 1.295, Q2 is at 4.1. Now this may sound great, but right now I want to dial it in to 4.5 to our start point. Let's jump right up to 5. Fantastic. And this is me swinging past it every 5 seconds. Fantastic. There. 4.43, 4.45. It's still on its way up on its swing. Close enough. Let's see what Q1's doing. Q1 is at 1.296. That's pretty much bang on. I'm happy with that. And Q2, 4.47 and on the rise. I'm going to say that's good. Now, let's get them plugged in and see what they sound like. For today's sound sample, it's just going to be me playing because I want to get the reaction of the guitar. I believe both pedals are true bypass. I'm not going to trace the circuit on this one out of respect for Andy because his designs are awesome. I'm not going to go tracing the circuit. If he wants to discuss this circuit on the podcast, that would be fantastic. But I'm not going to delve into it. What I will do is I'll put that second in the signal chain because we're not going to put the pedals on together, and I know that mine is true bypass. So with mine first, this pedal will not affect this pedal in the sound sample. We're going to be going into the front of the Victory V40. Well, I've got the purple version of DP40 because Danish Pete is awesome. We're going to be going into that, but I'm also going to go through my pedal board. I did this in a few videos so far. That means that we get to use the polyverbs for a reverb, and then maybe the camo flange or the analog man chorus or something like that. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. I'll get it set up now. I would like to know, and believe me, right, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you an absolutely unfiltered opinion on the sound difference between these two. Right, let's get that out, actually. And I did it before, actually, put the knobs on. I don't think anyone's seen that. So I went with the old muff knobs from back in the day. I figured it matched the black switch. And remember, our switch is going to be in the down position, so then it matches this. That's a manly switch, that. Look at that. Yeah. I'm going to set all this up and we'll see how it sounds. And also we'll see how it sounds going into like a range master and stuff like that, because I've got a range master on my board. So fuzz into range master into DP40 is kind of going to be my tone. Well, now it's that time. It is, of course, the sound sample. We're going to hear what an 89 fuzz pedal sounds against one that costs £300. Massive difference. I personally know that I am unconsciously biased. I'm going to want to believe that my pedal sounds better, but I really do like the Caught by the Fuzz. It's an amazing pedal, and for the price, I don't think you can beat it. Stay around to the end and you'll get to hear my unfiltered opinion after we've heard how they sound. Okay, so here's the sound sample. This isn't a competition, it is just a comparison because I love both of these pedals. So what have we got? Right now the fuzz is set to 0 on this pedal because with the pedal disengaged, I'm getting this really high-pitched whine. But as we all know, or as we should all know, when you're setting a fuzz face or a fuzz style pedal, you turn everything up to full and then back the fuzz off until the sound of frying bacon goes away. So there you go, frying bacon gone away. That is that pedal set. And then this pedal, you can see, you can kind of hear the difference in sound. Right, first up, we're going to be checking out how the guitar's volume cleans up with the Strat on a neck pickup. So, I'll tell you what else I found as well. I found that this pedal here and this pedal here are most alike in the mid hump setting. So the reason why I love the Caught by the Fuzz pedal so much is maybe because it's a bit more mid humped than a normal fuzz face. So, or a normal, I say fuzz face, a normal fuzz style pedal. So clean tone. There we go. So we're ready to go. Did you try the Abbey Road first? I tell you what, let's put a little bit of chorus on since I've got my pedal board set up now.
So now on the bridge pickup, no chorus and we'll have a bit of delay. So that's the delay I've got going on. And we'll just play some chords. As you can hear, that's a bit more aggressive, so I'm going to try the treble setting on the Abbey Road, see how that goes. Right, now we're going to go to the bass setting on the Abbey Road. I've got to say, with the single coil pickups, I'm really liking the Caught by the Fuzz. It's a hell of a pedal. And I tell you what, it's probably going on my pedal board. So, let's get rid of the Strat and let's see what we can do with some humbuckers. Right, now we've got our humbuckers. You'll have to excuse me sweating to death. I still haven't got a proper ventilation system fitted in here. Glyn, if you're watching this, hint, you're meant to be here fitting it. Cheers, mate. Anyway, let's hear how they sound with that classic riff. So what we've got is a little bit of delay on, and it's going to be on the bridge pickup. Maybe a little bit too aggressive for humbuckers there. Sounds great. What happens if we play something where we need to clean up the neck pickup and then flick to the bridge pickup for some lead tones? So here's our neck pickup. With that, dial that down to 5 to clean it up. Would it help if I tuned the guitar, eh? Ooh. Now let's see how the Caught by the Fuzz handles it. And that's one of the only songs I've ever played live in an Irish gig in Valencia with my old Ships band. In fact, we played a few gigs like that, and it was literally just them 4 chords over and over again. Fantastic. Right, let's swap this out for the Tele and see what other tones we can get. Okay, with the Telecaster, Tele, is this a real Telecaster? It's not, is it? Okay, with Fake Red, we're going to test out how these pedals take other effects. So we're going from the Tele into the Fuzz, and then the Fuzz is going to be going into the board, and then it's going to go through my favourite overdrive pedal, which is my MXR Dookie drive. Then it's going to go through the camo flange, which is the best modulation pedal in the world ever, 100%. In the Navy, we'd say safeguard, all clips on, buffers, Fowley jacket. Don't ask, it's a Navy thing. Yeah, so then we're going to the the camo flange, and then finally the delay. And the delay is the Mimic 2, by the way, if anyone was interested, by Homebrew Devices, who are no more. Still the best delay I've ever found. Right, so that's the clean tone. With a bit of fuzz. In fact, we'll do the fuzz last, shall we? We'll hear what it sounds like without the fuzz. Clean tone. MXR 2U drive. Camo flange, that's a glorious sound anyway, isn't it? Okay, Abbey Road fuzz. Oh, come on now. Right, you get the idea. So here it is, my final thoughts. One of these pedals seems like a steal and the other one seems like a mission. So which is better? Well, honestly, I think both have their place. Why limit yourself? Why not buy the cheap £89 fuzz pedal, put it on your board, stamp it around the place, but also buy the really expensive pedal that makes me, personally, feel really good inside. Now, I preferred the sound of my pedal. I have to say, there's like an extra 1% there. But that 1% could absolutely be unconscious bias. I mean, I want to believe that the bigger pedal is better. Therefore, it is better. So with that said, I'd love to know what you think in the comments. Be brutally honest about the actual tones, with disregarding the price. And then let me know what you think about the price difference and if it's worth it to you. For me, if they both sounded exactly the same, I would still choose the larger pedal with all the boutique components in. I just would. I'm vain. I don't care. I'm a collector. What can I say? Thank you for watching the video this far, and thank you for supporting Hello Sailor Effects. It's insane that this channel has grown so much. We've got over 7,000 subscribers. With that said, why aren't you subscribed? If you like this video, you're going to love this video where I build an Abbey Road fuzz.